lucky man.
Hey, thanks for staying tuned to Better Horses Radio. I'm Don Dawson.
And I'm Ernie Rodine, and we just look forward to you guys joining us each week. Always love hearing the comments from you. We're looking forward to seeing you at Equifest coming up in just a few weeks. And then we're also going to be down at the Ozark Spring Roundup. You know, they have combined, Don, I didn't tell you, combined. Yeah,
is that a big farm show? The Empire?
We're bringing cattle and the horses together.
Cool.
So really good there. But, hey, I'm excited about this next guest.
Me too, Ernie. We have Dr. Bryant Craig with us. He is with Merck Animal Health. Always have a lot to talk about when we talk about Merck products.
Well, and I tell you what, it's a great company. You know, they sponsor us, and they have some great products, and they have great people. And so glad to have them there, and also glad to have Silver Spurs Equine being a sponsor of the deal too. Great company, but not Silver Spurs, but PFI Western.
Absolutely. PFI Western and BootDaddy.com are bringing us Dr. Craig today, along with Merck Animal Health. So, Dr. Craig, are you with us?
I am. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you on and everything. We were talking about different topics to talk about, and you know, the one thing that I realized in working with your folks, as far as your, if I pronounce it right, your adjuvant and your as far as in your vaccines are second to no one, and that's why it's the less amount of reactions and everything you have. That can we touch on that?
That's right. That's probably the biggest thing that sets us apart from some of the other manufacturers is our halogen adjuvant, along with their antigen purification system. So our vaccines go through a filtration process that removes all the foreign material, so we get a lot less reactions than we would if we not gone through that process.
Yeah, and that's a great point, you know, because the average horse owner out there, they see, well, they can get this for that price and everything else. There is a difference in vaccines. And, you know, we appreciate all that what Merck does and from that standpoint. So I wanted to touch on that. And, you know, your wormers, you know, wormers are second to none also, and it's getting that time of year. They always said the coldest time of the year and the hottest time of the year, you need to be doing power dosing or power packing.
Yeah, we like to come in there with that power pack or power dose right there before that spring flush of grass comes on. So as we're nearing the, or maybe seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of winter, start thinking about that deworming process and making a plan for coming into that springtime period.
Another facet of Merck is your full care program that you have online, and tell us about that.
That's an initiative that was started a few years back just to give those owners and breeders out there that are raising those young animals a pathway to education on that foal's first year of life, and you know what our recommendations are for their vaccination protocol and deworming and nutrition and just all the management that goes into those young growing animals.
Doc, before you were with Merck, or back a ways back, you were with the Lazy and then the breeding programs and things from that. And looking at like my Quarter Horse Journal or Quarter Horse News, and this breeding is getting a lot more specialized and a lot more, some different factors come into play. And we talked about this, about the black markers on checking out the different genetic traits they have. Can you touch on that for our listeners, including me, on that? Because they talk about it's a 5-panel black or whatever. What are they talking about?
Well, the AQHA has been very proactive in trying to educate its members on these 5 genetic disorders that are most prevalent in the quarter horse breed. So there's actually, when you look at horses as a whole, there's over 200 genetic mutations that have occurred that cause some sort of disease. But when we narrow it down to the quarter horse breed itself, there's basically 5. One of them is going to be glycogen branching disease. We've got HERDA, which traces back to that Poco Bueno line, which is a skin disorder. HYPP, which has affected the halter breed. Malignant hyperthermia, which hasn't really been narrowed down to one specific discipline within the quarter horse, but can affect a horse when they go under anesthesia. And then polysaccharide storage myopathy, which is it's kind of similar to Monday morning disease, as we've heard in the past, or a muscle disease of the heavier muscled horses, and especially prevalent in the draft breeds. And so what AQHA did was they came together with researchers across the country, found markers for those 5 tests, and now they offer a 5-panel test for breeders where you can pull a genetic sample from either your stallion or your mare, send it in, and get a profile. And that way, when you're creating those matches, you can ask that stallion owner for their 5-panel test, match it up with your brood mare, and see if they're a good cross, not only for whatever discipline you're going after, but genetically as well, to try to avoid some of these syndromes.
If they didn't have the markers, say you had a mare and you checked the mare and she had the markers, and the stallion didn't, does that mean that the foal, the outcross, is not going to have it, or is it a recessive gene?
Most of them are recessive. The polysaccharide storage disease, or the muscle disease, is an autosomal dominant trait, as is HYPP. The glycogen branching disease, HERDA, and not real sure about the malignant hyperthermia, but they're recessive. So chances are a lot less of that foal having that syndrome if it's a recessive trait. If it's a dominant trait, chances are about 50-50 at the lowest, on up to 100%.
Are there as many HYPP and HERDA issues now as there were, say, 10 years ago?
Definitely not HYPP. In 2007, AQHA instituted a rule to phase out that trait, and so all those horses are being tested. So slowly that trait's being phased out of the registration. HERDA is probably a little behind that. As it's a more recently discovered syndrome and a little more spread out. As we see it traces back to that Poco Bueno line, and even before that into King and some of those horses way back. But that pedigree has infiltrated a lot more of the AQHA registration. So getting HERDA completely out of the registration is going to be a little tougher process. But with this 5-panel test, progress is being made pretty rapidly.
Yeah, it'll get there.
Well, in the fact of the matter, versus let's say 10 years, 5 years ago, they're making it aware. I've known individuals that had stallions that were bred good, that he had the test done on his, and he went and he just gelded all of his stallions. I mean, and they had nice colts, good things, but he that's what he did. It just got away from it.
Yep.
Well, and that's the responsible thing to do. When you've got a horse that's a definite carrier, and we're trying to eradicate this problem. I applaud that guy for being responsible with his bloodlines and with his own breeding program.
Now, you were at the Lazy, and of course, horses. You're in the equine side of it. With Merck and everything. Do you still have horses, Doc?
I do. I still have a few quarter horses that we use for cattle work and just some light trail riding. So always keep a few around.
Well, hopefully we can get you up there a dream ride. I bet you've been pretty close to it. If you've been trail riding with Dr. Barnett up in the Flint Hills, we'd love to have you up here and come to some of our events. And we appreciate everything you do.
Well, that would be great. And I appreciate you guys and the work you're doing, and thanks for having us on.
Can we get you back on the show again sometime?
You bet.
Well, tell everybody we said hello. You got a great company, just a great product, and I loved how you positioned your vaccines, because there is a difference in that, and people don't realize that. So appreciate all what you do, and keep up the great research and the products you keep coming out with.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Dr. Bryant Craig with Merck Animal Health.
But you hear a lot about this 5-panel this and 5-panel that, and then a lot of folks, they go into shop vaccines and figure, well, that's one, they're all the same. But they do a super job. They're a great partner to be on there.
They are. I actually use their vaccines for all of our horses, and we just haven't had any issues with them, just very successful, pleased with the products.
I tell you what, just appreciate everything you do. Till next week, this is Bronco Ernie.
And Dawn Dawson.
Happy trails.
And be sure to ride for the brand.